Christian family. Some of you don't know Paul White. He's this gentleman right here, and he may be the only one in this church older than me. No, Betty's over there, excuse me. we're right up there, aren't we? But my thinking in asking Paul to do this series, first of all, he's qualified. I am aware that he is certified to administer several analytical instruments in his counseling that he does, and he is a Christian counselor and a member of a nationwide Christian counseling group. He doesn't do therapy, but he does do Christian counseling, and so there is a difference, and we'll get into that. But I'm thankful for Paul. He's also a great scholar, former elder in the church, and what we'd like to do is us folks that are older, Paul and I would like to equip the next two generations below us. And when I thought about that this morning, the generation below us is in their mid-50s down to their mid-40s, and then from the late 30s down to the 20s, you know. And so we've got a couple of generations below us, Paul, in the church to help. Hopefully we will be equipping younger people to teach, as we've been so blessed to be able to do that. And so honored to be asked to teach. It is an honor, isn't it, Paul?
It is.
And so we're thankful to have him. You will find that he is one of the most technological people his age
youngest daughter that lives here is a professor at ACU in family studies, and she is a licensed professional counselor. Her husband is a dean and a professor there. And so we have the experience of raising 2 daughters and helping raise 5 grandchildren. So we've got some personal experience as well. But in addition to that, I have worked with and counseled and tried to help hundreds of couples and parents who are having children that are going off the deep end. And God has equipped me to be able to do that. He had to teach me early on, it's not you, Paul. It's me. You're just the tool. And I could tell you a number of stories to illustrate that. But he finally got through my big head. No, it's not you. But when I first started counseling and had some success, I began to think, you're pretty good at this, Paul. And then God had to show me otherwise. It is not you. I think that's true of all of us. One of the things I pray every morning is, Lord, please put somebody in my path that is searching. Somebody that I can help, and in the process, lead them to Christ. Because anything I can do in this life to help someone's marriage or in the family relationships is only a temporary thing, very temporary. What's really important is eternity, and that's what I want people to know. So most of the people that I've been able to bring to Christ have come because they came to get pictures and left with Jesus, or they came to get counseling and then ended up with a bonus that they did not expect. Don't ask God to send people and put them in your path unless you mean it, because He will do it. I don't know how many I've got now. I've got 4 premarital counseling couples I'm working with right now. I've got 3 marriage counseling couples I'm working with right now. And of the married ones, one of the major problems they've got is kids that are going off the deep end. I'm counseling 2 young people right now, one that's 17 and one that is 20 years of age. Both of them have quite serious problems because their parents really have failed them. They mean well, they mean well, they love their children, but they do not understand some of the things that are critical to understand about being a parent. One of the things that we must live with today is we have a second generation that has grown up with no role model of what a father, a mother, a husband, and a wife are like, a good are like. They don't have any reference point. And consequently, they pass on the dysfunction that they inherited, they pass on to another generation. And one of the things that I love to watch is the reaction to a couple, and they come from a very dysfunctional family, and they have a lot of dysfunction going on in their family. And I tell them, you have a decision to make. You can decide here that all that stops with you, or you can pass it on to your children, the same pain that you are experiencing now. The choice is yours, but you must first learn what you need to know, because you did not learn it at home. And then you can then hopefully have something to pass on that is worth passing on. So that's just a little bit of a context about where all this is coming from. I hope that I can say something today. I hope that my words are God's words. I count on His Spirit to give me what I need to be able to say something to a particular group of people, because He knows the needs and the hearts of those people who are listening to this. And so that's my prayer, is that I will say something or present something that will resonate with you and hopefully change your lives and your family's life for the better. So, Brenda and I, my wife, have get to that age and have been married that long, people start asking, what's the secret? On our 60th anniversary, which was June 2nd, I had a doctor's appointment, and the young nurse that was in there, I just shared with her, this is my 60th anniversary, and she said, wow. She said, what's the secret? And that's what you start getting asked when you get to be married for a long time. And so I told her, I said, really, it's plural. It's not the secret. It is secrets, plural. There's more than one. There's one secret for longevity, and that's a very simple secret. I can give you in just a few words how you can have a lifelong marriage. Here it is. All you need to do is simply honor the commitment that you made when you said, I do. Because more than likely, the person that performed your ceremony asked you, did it go away?
Yeah.
Do what?
You had something on your screen.
Oh, yes, I hit it accidentally. Okay. Okay. So, so when you say I do, that you're saying only death will part us. And by the way, whenever I perform wedding ceremonies, I performed 2 last week, and I always tell the couple, in fact, one of the couples is here. Did I not tell you that murder does not count? You can't get out of this by killing the other one. So when you make a promise, it's until one of you dies naturally when God calls one of you home. And so if you honor that, you will stay married. Very simple. But the rest of it isn't quite so simple, because there are many secrets for happiness, but they can be all summed up, and we're going to talk about some of those, by the way, but they can all be summed up with one thing, and that is the commitment gets you to the, I think I got some slides out of order here. So put a bookmark there. We're going to come back to it in a second. Let's talk about, again, the lifelong. And I mentioned, you may have seen that I put online that I would give anyone that asked for it a lifetime marriage guarantee. And there it is, right up there. And basically that's what it says, is if you honor the commitment that you made when you got married, you will have a lifelong marriage. And that is promised right there by God. At the end, you can't read that there, but it's signed, the great I am signs that promise. That if you do what you promised, you will have a lifelong marriage. But some of the rest of the secrets is simply be in Christ, led by His Spirit. Without that, you can never have the best marriage that you're capable of having. And I tell every couple that I do marriage counseling with, I'm not going to try to convince you to believe what I believe, but you will know what I believe, because I don't think you're going to ever couple of kids and see if we can really destroy their lives in the process. How does that sound to you, honey? You want to do that? Let's get married. I don't think anybody ever plans for that to happen. And yet, 50%, half of marriages statistically don't make it. And it's been that way for decades, give or take a little bit. So half of the people that walk down that aisle believing they're going to live happily ever after actually do. But it gets worse. Half of those are unhappy. The 50% that stay married are unhappy. Oh, and by the way, that 50% that fail doesn't even include all of the ones, the young people today, they subscribe to try before you buy. Let's live together and make sure we're compatible. Interestingly enough, the data is clear. That does not work. It actually increases the likelihood that you will fail in your marriage. God's way. God says something for a reason. Because we don't understand the reason, too bad. We need to do what he says anyway, because there is a reason, and we're going to kind of talk about that in a moment. So half of those that stay married are unhappy. So that means, once you do the math, that 1/4 of all of the couples who walk down the aisle believing they're going to be married and live happily ever after, only 1/4 of them, 1 in 4, actually do. But it even gets worse. How can it get worse? Who are the ones that stay married but are unhappy? Anybody got an idea? Christians, exactly. Christians are the ones that are likely to stay married but live unhappily. Why do they do that? What's the reason for it? Why would they stay married? Most people today consider divorce to be normal, almost. Just get rid of them if you don't like them. Now, I'm old enough that I remember a time when divorce among Christians was rare, very rare. When it happened, it was like stunning. Did you hear that Johnny and Susie, members of our congregation, got divorced? It appeared in the newspaper. They got divorced. Oh, it was shocking. Today, among Christians, I've heard the same thing. Did you know that Johnny and Susie got a divorce? Oh, that's too bad. Where would you like to go to lunch? You know, it's just accepted as, but those things happen. No, they don't just happen. They happen for a reason. Well, so why do Christians stay married? I hate divorce, says the God of Israel. Malachi 2:26. So that's the question that I have. The question that Christians answer when I ask it is, well, God hates divorce. And so I guess that really a happy marriage is a myth. It's kind of like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Not really. You know, we bought into a fantasy. And I guess this is all there is. We just have to live unhappily until one of us dies. That is not true. You know, I tell couples there's another option. It's not just stay married and miserable or divorce. he called Israel his wife. And he said that she committed adultery over and over again. That's the story of the Old Testament. Is God's wife. He wants us to understand the intimacy that he feels with his people. We, the church today, what are we to Christ? His bride. Okay. That's what he wants us to understand, the intimacy, and he puts it in terms that we can understand the marital relationship. And he says, my wife committed adultery over and over again. Well, to be specific, he said she went out and committed adultery under every spreading oak tree. Now, what was adultery he was talking about? It's not sex. He's talking about worshiping idols. Idol worship. That was what he was talking about as adultery. So, and he says when you get down to Jeremiah, where he says God is divorced, he says, she went out and committed adultery under every spreading oak tree. I was willing to take her back and forgive her, but she would not. Therefore, I gave faithless Israel her certificate of divorce and sent her away for all of her adulteries. God knows the pain that comes from divorce. Some of you may be divorced. God knows that pain. But he also knows that sometimes it's necessary because the mate will not repent. It takes two to be in a marriage. I finished up with a couple this last week. One of the most stunning I've ever counseled. He had had 17 affairs in 12 years of marriage. She was a Christian. He pretended to be. I asked her, why have you not divorced him? And she said, I don't have proof. I've got to have proof. I said, this is not a court of law. You probably will never see him being unfaithful to you. But have you not seen evidence of it? Oh, and she began to tell me the stories. Yes, many times she had seen evidence of it. But she said, that's not proof. I said, you know, people even get convicted of murder on circumstantial evidence. You've got an awful lot of circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of smoke here. There is fire here. By his own admission, you know, what more do you need? He has committed adultery to 17 times that he admits to. And on top of that, she has an STD. And I asked her, I said, have you been unfaithful to him? No. Well, then how in the world did you get it? I had a woman actually tell me one time because she ended up with an STD. And her husband said, well, you must have gotten it from the toilet seat. Okay. Well, she's still not convinced. At that point in time, I decided, and I think the Spirit gave me the words to say on this, because I explained to him, you have destroyed trust with your wife. She doesn't believe anything that you say. I don't believe anything that you say because you've been lying to me in our counseling sessions. I don't trust you. She doesn't trust me. So how can that be cured? And he thought about it and he said, I don't know. He said, I guess it's just going to take time. And I said, yeah, well, you've had plenty of time and you kept on having an affair. Why are you sad. But she hung on. I don't think that marriage was salvageable because there was only one person in that marriage, and it takes two. Well, there are actually some predictors of divorce. Probably many of them. The greatest predictor of divorce is premarital sex. The exact opposite of what this generation does. Try before you buy, be sure you are compatible. The data is very clear that it is the opposite of that. Why is that? Why is that? Well, folks, when a couple gets involved, they're no longer objective. When they get involved sexually, they are no longer objective because they're looking through a cloud of hormones. And they only see the things that they want to see, that they want to believe. And they ignore major, major red flags. This really came home to me probably, I don't know, it's been so many years ago that well, his wife died and I did her funeral here a couple of years ago. And they were married for quite some time. But when he was young and we were close to the same age, he began dating a young lady that all of us who were his friends were stunned. Like, what? Everyone could see this was a bad relationship. And we thought, well, okay, he's selling wild oats. Well, then he gets engaged to her. And we're all going, huh? He gets married to her. They have a 2-year-old daughter. And by that time, he had had enough. Because she was having multiple affairs. She worked at a hospital. She had multiple affairs. And in doing that, he finally had enough, and he said, I can't stay in this marriage. So he filed for divorce, and he also filed for custody of the 2-year-old. Now at that time, in Taylor County, where we live, there had never been a minor child who was awarded custody to the father. It had never happened. And his lawyer said, you're not going first. He said, I've got to try. I can't live with myself if I don't try. So it went to court. I got called as a character witness for him. We're sitting in a conference room outside the courtroom, and the lawyer is busy writing, and I got enough courage finally to ask my friend, why did you marry her? Everybody else could see that this was a bad idea, and you couldn't see it. I guess what they say is true. Love is blind. At that point, the lawyer spoke up. He said, no. Love is not blind. Lust is blind. So I got even more bold and I asked my friend, okay, you guys had any sex before you got married? Yeah. He said, in fact, that was the only good thing about our relationship. And that's where it hit me. That's why that doesn't work. Because you're not going to see things clearly, things that everybody else can see. Well, so that's the greatest predictor in over 40 years of counseling, 46 years of counseling. I've never yet had a couple that had serious marital problems that were not having sex before they got married. I'm talking about problems like the one I just described to you with the man with the 17 just once. Okay. Yeah, it is a predictor. We need to be teaching our young people, don't do that. God says don't do it. There's a reason for it. I didn't understand the reason myself until that story I just told you. A second predictor of divorce is a short courtship. You don't know anybody quickly. None of us, we all wear masks in new relationships. We put on the mask to show you, I want you to see the best parts of me, parts I'm proud of. I don't want you to see parts of me that I'm not so proud of. And it takes a while for that mask to come off. Katie and Harley. But this is something that Texas came up with to try to cut back the divorce rate. And so if you go and get at least 8 hours of premarital counseling before you get married, then a person who's registered with the state of Texas can get you a certificate like that one, and you take it to the courthouse, and you get a $60 discount on your marriage license. Wow. So, I get a lot of inquiries from that. 90% of them, when they find out they got to spend 8 hours of time to do it, they say, all they want is $60. But a few, like Katie and Harley, they come really, that's just a bonus, which is all it is. The $6 discount's a bonus. What you get out of it is priceless. So that's called Texas Together, TWO. The second thing here is one of the premarital inventories. One of the best is called SYMBIS, SYMBIS, Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And it is a great tool to kind of figure out the lay of the land and where the potholes might be in this relationship, and help you to make a decision about whether or not this would be a good match. Because folks, it is not only possible, but even likely at times that two good people are not good for each other. So this helps you find that out. And I always encourage couples, do something like this. Get premarital counseling before you announce your engagement. Because once the engagement is announced, most people are not going to counseling. It's embarrassing. Even though they might should. Like the couple that I've taken out their names and identifying information. But this particular inventory on this couple was screaming, and this is not yours, by the way. Nobody you guys know. But this inventory, this is one of many pages, but this inventory clearly shows this couple is a mismatch. And this marriage is likely to be fraught with problems, should they go through with it.
Paul, does that do some of the analysis on values, compatibility?
It's a very thorough report. And there's another one's pretty good called Preparing Rich. Rich is for married couples, prepares for premarital. For premarital, I prefer SYMBIS. For married couples, I like Enrich. So, we're down to time here. We got 2 minutes still. Well, enough time to just briefly summarize this. exactly what it's talking about, two becoming one flesh. Because the marital relationship, the physical relationship